Hi, I'm Karen Cherry Brown, and welcome to another episode of Prevailing Through Pain, where extraordinary women tell their stories. And today we have Tiffini Marshall, aka Tiffany Cherie. Tiffany, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so Tiff, tell us a little bit about your humble beginnings.
Wow, my humble beginnings. Well, I am the daughter of a bishop. I come from the church world, right? And so I started off as a pastor's daughter. And then over time, I ended up becoming a pastor's wife. And from there, I've always done hair. I've always been a
So
hairstylist.
let's back up a little bit and talk about being a PK.
Woo! Being a PK. Okay, what do you want to know?
So being a preacher's kid,
hmm
I would think that there would be a lot of expectations from the parents, from the community. Look, from those church mothers. I was raised in Church of God in Christ,
Okay.
and so my grandmother being one of the, it was a little small church, but still, everybody knew
Mhm.
my grandmother. So everybody's looking at me saying, I'm supposed to represent the way, the
Mhm.
purity class and all
Yes.
that. So let's talk about growing up
Well,
as a
you know,
preacher's kid.
the funny thing about the Church of God in Christ is I heard you can't just get in, you gotta be born
You
in,
gotta
right? You gotta
be,
be
can't
born
just
in.
you girl, you'd already know.
So yeah, so the dynamic about that, of course, I was born into this thing. It wasn't like later in life my father became a bishop, right?
Hmm.
He was first a pastor and then he became a bishop and had churches underneath him. And so my father was also the pastor that would go on the streets. So everybody knew who he was. And so it was, oh, your father is bishop. And oh, I couldn't go nowhere. Everybody knew who he was. And so I had an identity of I'm the pastor's or bishop's daughter. And
Hmm.
so it was very difficult as when you're young and you're coming into identity with who you are, what are your interests, how do you want to dress? I couldn't express that when I was younger. Even to just saying I knew when I was young that I wanted to always do hair, but it was your father's not going to let you do that. You're going to pastor, you're going to preach, you're going to be a church, you're going to be an evangelist. That was drilled into me young. And so the identity of who I am, who I become, I didn't have a blueprint. I'm a child of the 80s, right?
Hmm.
So church world was totally different than it is now, where you can go to church and wear jeans and it's not an issue. We had to wear what they call pantyhose back then,
Oh
right?
yeah. Oh
We
yeah.
couldn't get away with certain things. And so, of course, because I was always in the front line, there was an expectation of what people what they wanted to see as a pastor's daughter. And so it was very, very challenging. And then it became natural. I had to put on so many different masks, people pleasing. And then I had other issues where when you're a pastor's daughter, there's
Hmm.
silent secrets, right? You can't
Hmm.
let everybody know what's really going on in your household. We are to present an excellent face, right? And
Yeah.
so in the inside, there was screaming a lot of identity issues and looking for validation. And you would think having both parents in the home who are godly people, that they're going to meet your voids or your child needs. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case because I
Yeah.
had parents who were called to people. And sometimes y'all gonna get the blessing later. Let me go help somebody
Yeah.
else. And so there was a lot of lack there. And from that part of the missing ingredient as a child
Hmm.
going into now I'm mating, looking for a mate and then I turn around and end up marrying a pastor. And I'm like, that's something I did not want to do, right? It's like that same identity issue of people pleasing and putting on a mask is like repeating. And so my goodness, right? That whole perception of how people see us
Hmm.
it was always something that I grew up with, and it was so important because I do also know image is everything,
Yeah.
right? Your reputation is very important. And so that beginning was like you would think would be, that's your build. It was a lot of different traumas and issues with that we could talk about. But I didn't understand that it was also making me for who I would become later and
Hmm.
evolving. And so,
So I want to hear. So you left your pastor
woo,
father's house and you married a pastor.
mhm.
So how old were you when you got married?
Oh my goodness, I believe I was 31.
Okay.
31 when I got married. And then I'll tell you too, it wasn't always churchy, praise the Lordy. When I left my father's house, I left with the revenge of I'm finna go find out what this world is about.
Girl, that was me. My grandmother raised me in
Woo!
every Sunday, then every Sunday, all day Sunday,
Yes.
then YPWW. And don't get me wrong, because I'm so glad my grandmother instilled all that in me, because
Yes.
I'm like you, I wouldn't be first time today.
Mhm.
But when I turned 18 and left home, I was
Ooh.
like, I ain't never going to church
You hear
again.
me?
But
And
so
you see, you only named a couple days. I was there Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and back on Sunday all day. So that was my life. You know, my
Mhm.
parents, they didn't work jobs. Their life was
that was
ministry.
their job. Yeah.
And, you know, I learned also the entrepreneurship of what ministry is because you're counting on people to pay.
Mhm.
And no matter how we want to say, oh, we're serving God's people, at the end of the day, there's an offering to be had, you know?
Yeah.
And I was learning without even understanding that you want to meet the needs of people, you want to service people. And then at the end of the day, I was coming up with after church, we're selling popcorn.
Yeah.
After church, we're selling penny candy. And it's a whole lot in that dynamic. But back to saying when I was like, okay, I'm 18, I'm getting out of this house. I want to know what life is like. I want to go explore. I went straight into the club and everything they told me I can't do. I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna date this. I'm gonna, and I end up, it was, the whole church is praying now. Oh Lord, bring her back. Oh God, she got a call in her life. And you know what the thing about it is, you have to come into an identity where you have your own
Mhm.
personal relationship with God, where
Right.
no matter if I'm in this church house or in this church world, I still had a relationship with him.
Mhm.
And he always covered me. There was many times that I was in places where bullets, I'm from Chicago, right? There were bullets I was like, how did I miss the bullet? That's God, and he would always show himself to be there with me. But I
Mhm.
also learned through different life patterns. And of course, if you're so sheltered with the church world and who your father is preaching to, you don't understand the living that they go through.
Right.
We're dealing with people who live with poverty or people who deal with trauma, or, they got sons at home who are doing drugs or selling drugs, and you got different type of lifestyles of people. And if I'm only seeing one narrative, how can I really help somebody, right?
Mhm.
And so I think a lot of the things that I've went through in life is not just about for me. It was for
Mhm.
who I'm going to help later or who I'm going to be later, right? So,
Okay. So now being the pastor's wife at
ooh, the
31,
sting of it all.
after coming out of the streets and
Jesus.
bringing it back in, reeling it back in to your religious background,
Mhm.
now you're first lady.
Ooh,
Talk to us about that.
first lady. Well, again, my mom was the epitome of what a classy first lady was. And I've watched her cover my father, even when I'm like, if the world knew who he was. um, Me being a pastor's wife was something Karen, I probably knew that it was going to happen anyway. As much as
Mhm.
I did not want it, I knew when I was a young girl that I was going to be a leader. I was always told I was bossy, right?
Oh my God. That's what my grandma used to tell
Did she
me.
tell you was bossy? I'm like team lead bossy. Now I do know how to follow. I do know how to be a part of a team, but I also know we like to win.
I know if they taking too long, we like, okay, somebody got to get us to the
Listen,
finish line.
I need to win. I don't
Yeah,
like
yeah.
to lose, so let's get there. And so sometimes, of course, that takes aggression. It takes ambition. It takes being, optimist and like, let's be goal driven, right? So I knew that, if I wasn't going to probably be a first lady, I probably would have been a pastor because I knew I was a leader, and I've always attracted people to me. People have always been drawn to want to be by me. And
Mhm.
so I didn't understand that either, when I was younger, because I was just like, why are these people, and then I didn't even understand a lot of people were jealous of me. I'm thinking, for what? I'll give you the shirt off my back. Why would, your father's bishop? Well, so you can have him, honey. Because listen, I don't get to see him all the time anyway. But I didn't understand a lot of times that people, would have those,
Mhm.
things with me. So I knew I was a leader. I knew I wasn't like everybody. So being a first lady, I just was like, well, one thing I knew is I love the Lord. And, integrity is something that's so important. And so my ex-husband at the time, um, when he had the call, I just was like, let me pray about it first, because I lived this thing. He didn't come out of a family who was pastors.
Mm.
So he didn't have the identity of what a pastor family is. And family is very important to
So
me.
did you meet at church?
We met at a wedding.
Oh, okay.
We met, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I was not attracted. I was like, he's a nerd. I like thugs, right? I was like, he's gonna have to be a sanctified thug. I do not want a nerd. But he was a very clean guy. He's a musician, and he was trying to talk to me, and I was just like, what in the world? And my parents were like, you don't know that could be your husband. And I was like, oh Lord, I'm used to a certain type. And you know what? It's crazy because let me tell you why I ended up liking a different type than the church. You think in church your whole life, you should want a church guy, right?
Mm.
Well, my father was, like I said, he was known in the community. He was the guy you could be in the streets and the whole street knew who he was. They would always, hey, Rev, what's up? So he had the street guys. And he had a youth church. Majority of his congregation was young drug dealers or, young guys in the street. So my father fostered over 40 young people. So growing up, all these young people were in our home. And so I would see my father be so proud and he would be like, this is my favorite. And I'd be like, he's a thug, right? And here we are, me and my younger brother, we are in school, getting good grades, working our life for Jesus, and you magnifying that this thug in the house is your favorite, right? But we seen his love and his compassion for unfathered young men.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm gonna be honest with you, I've always at heart been a daddy's girl. I've always wanted to be that, I'm my daddy, I can get anything, and when I seen my father bring those type of guys and I seen him light up, I'm like, oh, so these are the kind of guys you like, right? And so, of course, I started getting attracted to those kind of guys.
Mm-hmm.
And, now being older, and having those conversations with my father of why did I pick wrong, with so many different bad relationships. And I had to tell him, I said, well, you always brought in the street thug. You've always brought in the juvenile delinquent. He was like, yeah, but that wasn't for you to like them. That was for me to do ministry. And I'm sitting there like, Father, that didn't work out. It did not work out. I end up liking
I like
them.
that swag.
Yes. And I was like, yeah, and it's totally different. It's edgy. And, why does the good girl always like the bad guy, right? And so, and then if I'm seeing my father praise them, why wouldn't the daughters, he didn't bring doctors and nerds around. So when it came to my ex-husband at that time, him approaching me, I was just like, no, he's a lame. We're not going to have fun. And so, long story short, my family just was like, you know what? You need a change anyway, because I was coming back into the church because I had a nice time in the world. It was very fun. Okay. But then when it was time to go, it was time to go. Yes, Lord, I'm back. Right. So they convinced me to go out with him. And he called and he was like, let's go out. I would like to take you out. And so I was just like, okay, why not? I ain't got nothing to lose. And I actually had a really good time. I think I laughed so hard. And he wasn't the churchy type, He was just like, I've been in church all my life. I have been ordained since I was 13, but I'm never going to preach. And he was hilariously funny. And I mean, I thought that, oh, well, maybe this is great. And so, that's how that even happened. I thought I had somebody who I could really be myself, who understood the church, but was like, well, this is not our future. Now, here's the part where I knew it, but I just was in denial. I was at the dinner table with him, and when he was making me laugh, I heard the Lord so clear say he's a pastor. And I even mentioned it. I said, do you want a pastor? He was like, no. Absolutely not. Because he was a musician at the time. He played. And I was like, you sure? Because I don't want a pastor. He was like, honey, listen, them days is over. I did that when I was a kid. And so I was like, okay, great. We can continue because I don't want to deal with that. I didn't want to have anything to do with the demand of people taking away from my family, right? Because people can be very needy and serving people is a responsibility. And when you're doing it for the Lord, you have to do it with integrity and you're doing it for God. It ain't no more about you because I love God too. So I ain't gonna just be disobedient, right? But after we got married, probably the first month, he was like, he was going to seminary school because he was like, I want to go ahead and I want to finish seminary. And I was like, okay. And we worked together as a team. I even helped, pay, for him to finish. He had got a call to pastor a church, a small church. And so I was like, let me pray about this. Please just give me 3 days. Let me talk to the Lord, because he's like, listen, I don't need to be married to pastor. So that was a red flag. Because when he said, I don't need to be I'm going to do this with or without you, I just was like, see, that ain't the way to go right here. Wait, hold on.
So I'm curious, why the 3 days? What did you?
You know what? I wanted to give myself over to fasting and praying. Okay. And I just was like, just give me 3 days. I don't know where the 3 came from, but I really wanted to, because that's something that I take very seriously. That's one thing about me when it comes to God's people and that position. You are not living your life for you. You have to, and then we had children. So it was like, we had already had children before we had got married. And so I just was like, we had a different dynamic. And I wanted to make sure that there was a foundation in our marriage first before putting other people in that position, because I know that that's the sacrifice. It's going to be late nights. It's just like business. It's going to be late nights. And then in the middle of what we're doing, the people come first. These are God's people. And being a shepherd is something very serious, and so I just didn't want to take advantage of that position. And then I know that means crucifying your life. Hey, listen, we're an example, So I just really wanted to pray. I wanted to be on the same page with it. I wanted us to be on one accord. How can 2 walk together unless they agree? And I didn't agree with it because I just was like, it's too soon. I know it's an opportunity, but some opportunities can cost us our marriage. I've seen marriages in ministry destroyed because of ministry. I've seen pastors, and I have very close friends, they cheat on their wives and they sleep with the members, but then they wear masks, and the woman isn't happy, but she's saving face because she's trying to keep her family and the church together. And so for me, I didn't want that life. I'm like, if we gonna do this, we saving the world. We doing this, we an example. God's counting on us, And unfortunately, when I tried to do the 3-day fasting, the second day of the fast, I came home and he had already signed the paper to accept it. And then that's when I got real quiet, because I was like, okay, Lord, I guess I don't have the space to really process this like I should, and maybe I'm wrong. I started playing that role, or maybe I'm wrong, and how dare me? But I just wanted to there was a call.
How dare me think about me?
And I understand that there's a call. People can call you, but when the Lord calls you, it's a whole different thing. And so I was waiting on the call. I don't answer just because people say, you grew up in the church, it's all in you, you should go ahead. No, the Lord has to call me too, because I'm not going to just have gifts and not give them over to the Lord, and to know that this is a service. I'm here to serve people, not to be served. And so when he had already signed it, it broke my heart, but I held my head up and I said, I can't, this is what we gonna do. And so, but I knew then that that was a red flag for me, because you didn't give me the space to pray about it. And fast forward the story, it was a disaster for our marriage. Had he not pastored, I really believe that our marriage would have lasted to this day. But I also understand what grace is. And I also understand what free will is, because you have the right to choose. And I wouldn't have probably cared. I wouldn't have never let it go. I would have fought it to the end. But sometimes the Lord say, honey, this one doesn't serve you.
Yeah, this is the
end. And I'm going to cause it to where it's out of your control. Because you won't walk away, I'll have him walk away. And I think that is where unraveling of trauma really began, because as a child, I already had trauma issues. I've already had things that were hidden under the rug that we never talked about, secrets and things that I never shared with people because I was afraid. I couldn't tell my parents, if the church find out, if my friends find out. And so I just was like, oh my God, here I am in another whirlwind.
Hold that thought. We're going to hear from one of our sponsors.
Those in the know SIPS Consults. SIPS Consults is hiring. Confident, competent, and consistent. Starting as a consultant and a volunteer, SIPS has grown into a dynamic group of stellar sterile processing professionals, offering excellent benefits, 401k, and consultant in training program. We are hiring certified technicians, leads, supervisors, interim managers, educators, coordinators. Apply at recruiting@sipsconsults.com or dial 1-866-615-7977.
All right, beautiful. And we're back. So you were saying that with your marriage, you felt like you were just kind of spiraling back into some things that hadn't been resolved earlier in life. And I think, so many times and I'll say, like, for me, it was heard as being rejected. For mine was being rejected from rejection from my father. And so I looked for men to try to find love because I didn't get that love from my father. And so I chose the wrong men. And you had said that there was some things earlier in your life that you felt like was still kind of buried down, and you just kind of took that into
that. I mean, for you to even say that, I'm just like you're reading my whole life entirely, because even now versus then, I still reflect on the little girl still trying to catch her daddy's heart, and I'm like, here I am, 43, and still is like, oh my God, I just want my father to see me, and me and my father, even our relationship now, I think I'm the one that's more, everybody says, you're so much like your father, you're so much like your dad. And I'm just like, I don't think that he sees that in so many different ways, because my father is a builder. I've seen my father build churches from scratch, right? And I'm like, here goes the tears. Because, when you're daddy's girl, you'll have those tear jerkers because they're very sensitive, especially me. Thank you. I didn't come here to do this crying, but here we talk about it. I think for me, even as a little girl, it took me years to even confide and tell my parents, those same juvenile kids that he was fostering had molested me at a very early age. And a lot of people are like, what? I never knew that. And I'm just like, of course I wasn't going to tell. And, and when I did share it, oh my God, my mom was just brokenhearted, because my mom, they were young, when they had us. They were 19. And pastoring at 19, woo, that's a lot, while they were trying to save the world, I'm lost. Their own daughter, and in their own home, I think for me, wanting my dad's attention and affection so much, and the fact that he didn't know it was happening, I'm sure as a parent now that I am one, it has to be heartbreaking to know that under my care, something happened to my child. And so when I confronted my father, I was already grown at that time, and I told him, because it wasn't one time, it was multiple different, because they were foster kids. So, they would be there for a season and they would go on, and here come another one. And so it became a norm. And then I'm thinking as a young girl, because whether we talk about that part or not, when you have had sex, right, as a young age, there's some part that is not rape. Like, they didn't aggressively rape me. It was more of, okay, it's a sexual feeling, so there's a type of pleasure, but I don't know if I should be having this type of pleasure, and they're telling me don't say anything about it, and then it's feel good, and then in some lustful way, it's almost like you crave it again. So being young and not being able to identify that. And then let's be honest with it. Don't act like the molestation didn't feel good sometimes, because it was starting to become a norm. And then, of course, I was very promiscuous, and I wasn't a church virgin. I was not. They said pastor daughters the worst ones. Well, that's because we were hanging out with your kids. Your kids had put us on to some things that we didn't have access to. So, there will be many a times that my family would have to go preach out of town, and they would leave us at other people's homes. And there was opportunities for people to take advantage, And so for me, for my family, for my father to not know that, and then, my mom did not know that. I think for me, there was an abandonment issue where y'all didn't know. Y'all left me with these people, and you brought people in our own home. They would sneak in my bedroom, and then they would threaten me, if you tell your father, I'm going to kill you and everybody in the house. And then you're young and you're in fear. How do you cope through that? And so holding that type of trauma, and then you go to church and you hear the Lord, because you think you did something wrong.
Yeah.
The Lord will throw your sins in the sea of forgiveness. Oh, my dad could preach. That wasn't the issue. I got the word, and I held the Bible very close to me. And there was many a times my parents would always come in my room. I would always be reading scriptures because I was looking for something to kind of heal. I was a Bible scholar. I knew when I was 5, I would stand in front of the church. I could read all the books of the Bible. I could quote them. I could tell you where they found it. People was like, that girl's going to be something. Yeah. And for me to have been through those type of things where everybody thinking I'm clean, here we are with these masks. Here we are sweeping things under the rug. And here is a broken girl who just want her dad to just embrace her. Here I am, even now at 43. It's like I'm still having relationship issues. I thought when I got married, the love.
So let's back up on the when you got married, because you said he was funny and he was a nerd. So do you think that felt like security?
Absolutely. It absolutely felt secure. First of all, he was very good looking. He was very tall, but to me, it was just like he was a clean cut guy. And what I was looking for was someone to love me. I'm a giver. So when you're always pouring out and trying to be a people pleaser, you can be left depleted because people are takers. So we got givers and takers. Which one are you, right? And so in relationships, I was always with the taker because I had a lot to give. And so I'm like, well, I guess that was my love language. I can do this for you. I can do that for you. And then to find out at the end of the day, you cheated. At the end of the day, you weren't loyal. At the end of the day, here I am depleted, empty. I've given you everything. Why can't I have your love and devotion? For me, those are trauma, abandonment, trust issues, rejection. Why you don't love me? And then I had boyfriends who cheated on me with best friends, and I mean, oh my gosh, you feel like I can be so good to somebody. How could you just not give me what I want? And the main thing is, this is a girl looking for her father. And again, this isn't something to throw my father under the bus, but I hope it's a learning lesson to men and their daughters, because if this is the power that a man has with a woman or a young girl, where her father, if the first compliment that I get, "You're beautiful," comes from a boy in high school and never hearing it from my father, I'm thinking, this boy said I'm beautiful.
Yeah.
I should already know that. I can look in the mirror 10 times, but it's different when a boy or a man tell you, especially when you don't have that validation from your father. This is the first man that comes into your life. And my heart goes out so much to women who don't have fathers. And they say, how can you relate? At least your father was home. And I'm like, honey, my father was serving people. He was serving God. And I had to deal with whatever crumbs and leftovers I could get. But I understand what that is to not have them there. And some people, I say, you better thank God you didn't have a father, because some fathers have raped their daughters. Some fathers have been very verbally abusive to their daughters. So you don't know what God or destiny or purpose protected you or shaped you or molded you to be because that man wasn't there. Yeah. But here's the other part. When that man is missing, there's still some work you got to do as a woman. It's still some work you got to do, because a man could come in and tell you this, and we just, I'm the type of woman, I mean, everybody isn't the same, right? So let's just talk about me. I'm the type of woman that if a man tells me, and I've had to work on this, where I have to love myself so much, I don't care what a man say, I know my worth and I know my value.
That part.
And I still to this day at 43 have to find Tiffini, not through a relationship, and so even through the divorce, even through the childhood trauma, even through bad relationships, being the giver and always being left on depleted or insufficient fund, right?
Mhm.
Having to pick up broken pieces and have God, all right, let's put her together again. All those broken pieces and just building her up, and then here come another one shattered again. You go through life and you be like, you know what? I think after my divorce, which was in 2016, we had already been separated 3 years prior, so I don't even
So how
count
long
that.
was you actually together? I'm sorry.
Okay, so we were together on and off for about 10 years.
Okay.
On and off 10 years, because remember I told you we had children already, right? So
Mhm.
we were together on and off, breaking up, getting together, breaking up, getting together. And at first, like I said, it was a romance stage. At first, ooh, you're lucky to have me, and then I let my guard down, right? And then we ended up, of course, he had even cheated before we had got married. So
Mhm.
I had left. This was right after we had our son. I had left, and I just was like, I'm starting my life over. And it's so interesting how when you leave, God bless you like crazy, right? And I had got a house and I had got myself together, and here he come. I want to come. I want to come home. What home, sir? You just left me disaster in a disaster. And because I was a sucker and it was familiar and I knew him, and I was like, yeah, he is the father, and I do want to have my family. That's something that I've only major prayer I've ever asked the Lord was to give me a family,
Mhm.
right? Because mine was so broken that I was like, but when I have mine, I bet you we ain't gonna be like this, and we gonna do this, and I'm gonna be with a man that I love. My husband gonna love and adore me. I ain't gonna be dealing with this stuff and hearing the venting over the pulpit. There will be times that I'll be like, did he just say that my mom is sitting right here? I was like, I'm not having that. So for me, that was the one thing I wanted. So when he tried coming back here, I just was like, okay, there's some things that's got to change. And
So he's already pastoring the church at
not
this
at that time, not because
okay.
this was when we were
This was
dating.
before. Okay.
So when we were dating, there was a lot of on and off, and those were, of course, red flags.
Mhm.
But he had persuaded me, and it seemed like he had just did this 360 that this is what I want. And not only I don't want to be back with you as a boyfriend. Let's get married.
Okay.
I was like, finally, it's been a while. Okay, you sure? You sure? And so to see a 360, I just was like, wow. Now, the one thing about him, because every time we break up, it was always something that he had did or whatever. It wasn't never because I did something. It was because he lied, right? But he reminded me of my father, right?
Mm.
He had and like I say he was a nerd. It's because he was very highly intellectual. He was very smart. But then I find out it was all a mask too, right? Good performance, sir. You ain't as smart as you thought, right? But just with that, I just was like, he's somebody that will cover me and love me and make me feel great. And again, I was before we got married, I was in my 20s, the 10 years is 30. That's how long do we got to be together before you decide if we going to be together, right? So it was and then too, because when he came in the room, everybody looked and it was like that prominence, that dominance of a man. And I just was like, and he cared about me. He loved me. We laugh, we have fun. Woo! I think I hit the jackpot.
Hit the jackpot. Yeah.
And I shouldn't have my standards so high, finally, right? And so I was looking for all of that. Who can fix me, right? Who can fix me other than God? And I think that's where God says, honey, I'm the lover of your soul. And what work you need to be done is not going to come through a man. And you have to do that work in yourself. And so here we are, 43 years old. Unfortunately, the hope and the expectation that I did have for my ex-husband, of course, he couldn't fulfill that. That's too much for a man to even handle, you know? He's like, you got a lot of baggage, right? And I would be like, what do you mean I got a lot of baggage? You're insecure. No, I'm not insecure. You've cheated. Don't try that, insecure. You show me that you can be disloyal. And it was always me, always giving, giving, giving. And then there's a narrative that I have to believe, which was a lie. So I always would find out the truth. And then it's like, huh. And then I thought about, what would my father want for me?
Mm.
Would he want me to be like this? Because I always would evaluate, what will my father say about this? And of course, when I told my father what was really going on in my marriage, and after, he had been physically abusive, verbally abusive, and just the whole abandonment situation with my husband at that time, my father was like, "You don't deserve this." And that was like the first time that I heard my father made me feel like I'm in a situation that's beneath me. Why you let me marry him? I only dated him because you said this might be my husband, because I took it, whatever my father said, I took it as gold. And you know, we can't go back into time. Like, why would my father say this person was a good candidate for me? And this was somebody that wasn't, you know?
And so you said he abandoned you. So is that what ended the marriage?
Well, okay, so as far as the time frame, you had asked me how long did the marriage even
Mhm.
last? Getting back to that question. Um, we were together on and off 10 years.
Mhm.
We finally had got married. When we had got married, we probably had a good 6 months without no breakup, no leaving. We were married. So this is grown folks stuff, okay? That boyfriend,
Different level.
girlfriend thing, this marriage, right? And there ain't no divorce. We told each other, we promised we were not having a divorce, okay? Um, 6 months into our new marriage, our new start, um, there was some issues that came up. One in particular, there was a death in the family on his side that caused grieving. And then there was a death from my grandfather. So my grandfather was my daddy,
Mhm.
right? And so that was a hard one for me. So two people were grieving. Me being the giver and me being an empath, I'm being so sensitive to his grieving. But when it came to my grieving, I found out something that was tragic about my grandfather because he was my hero. I found out that my grandfather, who had been married to my grandmother for over 40 something years, had a whole nother family on the side.
Mm.
So, how in the world could he do that and we not even know
Right.
that on the day that he died, my grandma found out? Because there was a young boy at the time. My grandmother, she had told my granddad he needed to get out of the house. We never knew why. She told him this, so he had his own little place or whatever.
Mhm.
And when he had died, it was on Halloween. I'll never forget it. He had died, and there was a young boy at the house that had called my uncle, and then my uncle had to call my grandmother. My grandmother got there. She was trying to figure out who this young boy was, and she thinking, of course, because my grandfather, he had a garbage disposal company. He was one of the first Black millionaires in Michigan. He had an amazing, so that's entrepreneurship, right, in the family. And so my grandmother's thinking this young man is just a guy that, my grandfather is probably mentoring or one of his employees. So she's looking at him and he has said one word, my dad, I don't know what happened. And she turned around and said, "What do you mean your dad?" The boy's 17 years old. And my grandma is looking at my grandfather on his deathbed and saying, "What do you mean your dad?" "That's my dad. And I have a younger brother. He's 2.
Mhm.
"What?" My grandma said, and I'll never forget this, and I'm not tickled like that, but I am. I tell her this all the time. She said, "If he wasn't dead, I would have killed him." Can you imagine
Mm-mm.
that? What's crazy about that is 2 nights after my grandfather had died, I'm at home in my loving marriage. I had a dream that we were at this funeral and there was another family. So I called my mom. I woke up, I called my mom and said, "Mom, I just dreamed this crazy dream. I dreamed that granddad got another family." My mom was like, girl, you panicking. Your granddad ain't got no other family. Now, my grandma hadn't told anybody this happened. So I'm sitting here like, "You sure?" She's like, "You ain't taking this well. I know this is hard for you. You're your granddaughter, you're your grandfather's favorite. And I know, girl, your granddaddy ain't had no other family. You was his favorite granddaughter. He loved all his kids." And so she gave me this reassurance that that was just a dream. So my grandmother had checked on me and asked my mom, "How's Tiffany taking the death?"
Mhm.
My mom said, "Grandmama, she ain't taking that too well. She dreaming that daddy got another family." My grandma said, uh, "Get her on the phone." My mom was like, well, she said, I actually need you to sit down. I need to tell you something. So my mom is like, what do you need to tell me?
Wow.
So my grandma's telling her everything that I just told you. My mom cannot believe this because there is no way that that could happen from my granddaddy. Are we serious here? And so they got me on the phone. And mind you, I'm married, right? But now my identity of men have completely been seared when I hear that, honey, tell me about the dream. And I'm like, tell you about my dream? My mom told you about the dream? Grandma, I know you're going through grieving right now. Don't worry about that stuff. No, tell me the dream. So I told her the dream. She said, all right, you sitting down? I said, no. She said, sit down. Everything that you dreamed about is true. She told me what exactly I just told you what happened. And my heart fell to my ankles because now my hero is a cheater and has no integrity in the community. And everybody no one knew. No one knew. No one knew. And if he could get away with this his whole entire life, but on his deathbed, every man is a victim of doing this. If he could, no one would have. He walked so proudly, like I would net him. What? He ain't even all that fine. And that right there triggered every lying, cheating, betrayal in me from my childhood to that day. And then I had to look at my husband. You a liar. You're a cheater. He was like, what is going on? I ain't cheating. Yes, everybody is. If he could cheat, you cheat. And you cheated on me before, remember? So I'm telling you, those issues right there, I don't even know a pamphlet or a book to say this is how you heal. Because that was traumatizing for me, for my family.
Oh,
and
I can't even imagine.
Yeah, and even being at the funeral, and then you can't really grieve in the right way of a loss because you're like,
how could you? And you're looking at your grandmother, feeling
his
for
whole
her.
legacy of his whole life that worked so hard was challenged because of an act of infidelity. And you too old to be having a 2-year-old, sir. I'm sitting here like, and then to see my grandmother have to hold her head up high and do the obituary as the wife and didn't put no extra kids in it. I mean, she handled it with class and dignity. And she said to me, I asked her, I said, Grandma, how did you get through this? How did you get through having to bury him like this? And she said, I had to hold my head up high because everybody didn't know. She said, but I promise you, I would have killed him if I found out. And so for her, that hurt me to see my grandma have to, but it also taught me something that if it can happen to her, it can happen to me. And so my marriage downhill, it went downhill from there because when you come home late, where you was at, show me your phone because you have patterns. And then money was missing. And then, oh my gosh, here we go, down the line. I was checking bank statements. And when I saw the bank statements and I saw hotels and I saw movies and I saw dinner for two, trigger. And then you want to use being a pastor as a cover up. And then, oh my gosh, what they say, what goes into the wash? What is that saying? You know that saying? It's going to come out. It's going to come out. Here I am, a pastor's wife. Grandfather just passed. I'm newly married. I'm in church. And I'm sitting here with all this grief and I'm just trying to serve the Lord with gladness. And then I see bank statements and I see numbers in your pants. And I'm like, is this ministry or is this infidelity? Because I understand as a pastor, you're going to have, meetings. You're going to have to, have consultations with women. And this church was majority woman based. It was a very small church. And so there was no married couples. The previous pastor was a woman. So, these is, woo, our pastor, woo, right?
And a good looking pastor.
Yeah. And then I noticed when I started coming to church, they have a seat for the first lady. Those are people who are not church oriented. There's always a first lady seat where she usually sits, right? And again, Karen, I never was really hung up on that because I've always had to sit in the front. I hated it. I wanted to sit in the back all the time. So for me, I'm like, cream never has to fight. It's going to rise to the top regardless. So I could sit in the back. I could be in the basement. I could be in the fellowship hall. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
When I came to church, I started seeing a certain lady in particular sitting in my seat. And so the usher was like, First Lady, we gonna move her. No, don't move her. Let her sit there. She wants to sit in that seat, honey. There's a hard price to pay in that seat. So go ahead and sit there. And I was never, really confrontational when it came to being that first lady, because I'm here for the people. And if they want to sit where they want, let them sit where they want. We don't care about seats. People used to fight in church over seats. And I was like, not at this one. And so I started noticing him not wearing his wedding ring. And so there's another trauma trigger. Why are you not wearing this ring? And I remember coming home from work. I was doing hair at the time. I've always done hair, but I was also going to Chicago State. I was working on my marketing and public relation degree at that time. And we had the kids. My kids at that time, they were very young. We were going to daycare so I can go to work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he was doing his pastoral duties. I remember the night before, we had made great love and we were happy. I always cook. I always did my wifely duties. I never not did that, right? I came home from work and all his stuff was gone out the house. I said, what in the, when I say clean, I said the TV gone. What in that sounds to the record players, all his clothes was gone. I said, okay. I got on the phone because I'm like, what's going on here? First he wouldn't answer. It took a couple hours because he probably figured out, okay, she know. And then I had the kids. So I'm like, it's one thing to dump me, but you got children attached to this, So he finally answered the phone. I said, so explain to me. I was very calm. Explain to me why your stuff is not in the house. And he said, well, I'm deciding to take a break. I need to focus on my studies, so I got a dorm. I said, wait, stop, hold on. You got a dorm? I'm sitting here helping you pay. We got bills and things that we need to pay. You have a dorm? Yeah, I have a dorm. I said, that's not how married people do. We don't separate. So let's be honest. Do you want to separate? Do you want a divorce? No, I don't want a divorce. I just need a break. A break from what? You've had a lot of breaks. You haven't been home. You've been doing ministry stuff. Well, I need a place where I can really study. I said, I just spent thousands of dollars renovating the room in the back of the house for you to have your office. It's something that givers, I want to build an office for my husband. So when he can have his own man cave, right? I was excited about it. He was like, yeah, but I need to be out of the house. And I said, well, can you explain to me? Out of the house, what does that mean? Because I don't know how married people do that. And then how can you make decisions like that without having a conversation with your wife, your partner? Mm-hmm. I don't have to explain anything to you. I am a grown man, and this is only a season, so I can focus on school, and we can talk later. And hung up the phone. And I thought about it, and I called back. I said, wait a minute, he got my car. So how am I supposed to get, because we had two cars at the time, but he was driving my car because my car was the newest. I said, wait, hold on. You're not about to leave me and then wait. And then what about these bills? And he wouldn't answer. Then I was just like, okay, let me go to God in prayer. Because see, this right here, I felt my nerves. See, that black woman syndrome where I will go find you. And when I find you, you won't like this one because you just pulled one on me. And I'm not dumb and I'm not stupid and I'm not crazy. And I do want my marriage, so let me act accordingly. And then we are pastors. So at the end of the day, it's a way I need to act, because if the world finds out, it's not going to be good for the church. So here I am putting people before my own need with my marriage. Mm-hmm. So I went to God. I started praying. I went on a fast. I started losing weight. I still had to do hair because I still needed to make money. And then here I am. My children, they're young. They counting on me. They need me. So I can't be too emotionally unattached, right? And so I'm like, I knew it. My grandfather did this. Now it's happening to me. This is a family generation curse. This is horrible. And at that same time, my mom and my dad separated. So here we go. My mom is gone from my dad's house. My grandmother just buried away my cheating grandfather. And this man then took all the stuff out the house. Karen, don't you laugh? I'm sitting up here like, this is crazy. This is just, I can't even. So I started praying. I started fasting. I was going to the shop. I was like, let me just, because I need to make money. And I had a very good clientele. I mean, in Chicago, it wasn't hard to have a clientele. It was really, great. I was at work and I got a phone call. I had been a few weeks and I got a phone call. I'm thinking it's a client, the receptionist at the salon. She was like, Tiff, you got a call. She keeps calling, trying to get in touch with you. I was like, book her an appointment. No, she wants to talk to you. So I remember I was like, hi, this is Tiffany. How can I help you? Leave my man alone. What? Hello? I'm sorry. I think you got the wrong Tiffany. It's a bunch of Tiffany's here. Let me find out which Tiffany. No, I'm talking. Is you Tiffany Johnson? That was my married name. And I said, yes, this is. What do you mean leave your man alone? Because if you're talking about my husband, you shouldn't have no man. Yes, I am. Leave him alone. He belonged to me. And I was first, I hadn't talked to him in weeks, right? I'm emotionally like, I don't know what's going on, God. What are we doing here? And I would go to church and I would sit in the back and I would leave early because I would see he wasn't wearing his ring and I'm trying to save face and the kids hadn't seen him or heard from him. So I would go Sundays because they can run up and daddy, right? And then we're faking the funk like everything is okay, but he's very disconnected with me, not really saying much. And I'm just like, I understand we can't talk because you got them people, but yeah, y'all have a great day. I'll catch y'all later. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm sitting here like, this is for the kids. This is not for me. So when I had this phone call at the salon, I think that's again, my heart again fell to the ankles. I'm tired of my heart. I should have had heart failure on my heart every time it fell to the ankle. So she told me that, I called him immediately. All right, so here we are. Your girlfriend called me and told me I don't know what you're talking about. I don't got no girlfriend. It's all a lie. So these are pictures that we're painting for me to have a different narrative. She kept calling. Then she got my cell number. She kept calling. She would call at 5 a.m. And then he ran over to the house one day to check on me because I was like, listen, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to find out who this is. Calling and hanging up, calling. Leave him alone. 5 a.m, disrupting the house. And I'm just like, okay. So I guess it drew him to come home. So he came home a couple times and he'll wake up because the phone was ringing again. And I answered it. I said, hello. Leave him alone. I'm not the only one. He got another woman. So now my husband is laying next to me in the bed. And I'm like, this girl is calling me. You want to talk to her? He jumped out the bed. That's why I can't be here. I can't have any peace. And I'm sitting here like, this girl calling to tell me, you talk about peace. Are you kidding me? I'm getting my stuff. And I said, okay, all right, you getting your, yeah, he packed his little bag, because remember, he took all his stuff already. Mm-hmm. Packed his little bag, left. And here I am, devastated because I don't have answers. And I know that she ain't lying. Ain't nobody gonna call you thousands of times. So I got an investigator on this and I found out where the girl worked. And then I pressed charges because I said, this is harassment. And not only is she calling me from her company phone, I'm going to sue the company. So, they was coughing up names. We found out who she was. And then when I found out who she was, it was one of our family, one of my family's mutual friends who was a pastor's sister. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to tell you how this is going to go. Because they were like, please don't press charges. Oh my God, they just arrested her. She just lost her job. I said, absolutely. And we had a court date. So my ex-husband at that time, he came home. You need to stop whatever you're doing. I'm like, what are you talking about? You got a case against this girl. And I said, well, all you have to do is tell me the truth. Because you told me that you're not doing anything. So this is harassment. Now, if you tell me the truth, I'll go ahead and I'll drop the charges because you're going to be honest. I ain't never touched a girl. I don't even know the girl like that. And we're friends, but... So I said, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm giving you the perfect opportunity to tell me the truth. I love the truth. I don't like to be lied to. If you tell me the truth, I'll respect it. But if you lie to me, I won't. This man told me to the death of me. I swear it on my grandma. I swear it on everybody. I ain't never touched her. I said, okay, well, I'm going to go to court because I'm going to press charges because this is harassment. The day before court, he was finally being installed as pastor. He came home. I want my family. I don't want no problems. I said, okay. Well, we got installation service and I need you to be there by my side. Of course. I have court tomorrow. Oh, I don't want you to do the court. Tell me the truth. Okay, I'll tell you the truth. I slept with her. Oh, okay. That's all I needed, right? I called the pastor who was her brother, and I told him, I'm not gonna come to court. I'm gonna let her live. He told me the truth. I had new commitments of, I promise we're gonna go forward. We're gonna put this behind us. I just didn't want to hurt you, and da 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 da. I said, okay, cool. Awesome, great. I want my marriage anyway. We just got to have a testimony. We're going to save the world with this. Oh, we're going to have a powerful marriage ministry. Because I'm thinking, God will restore anything, won't he? I was super excited about it. And I promise you, the Lord knows what's best, because there's no way in the world that I should have still been there. And he had gave me all the signs. And they say once a cheater, always a cheater. And Karen, when I tell you, we went to the installation service. It was great. I think 2 weeks later, he was gone again. And now he not answering any calls. And I think for me, I was still praying, God is going to restore the marriage. My uncle died. When my uncle died, it was in Michigan. I had to drive 3 hours away. Um, I hadn't really, my uncle, we was close family, but I wasn't like attached to where he died. I'm like, oh my God. It was just like, okay, oh, my uncle. I got a text message of all my stuff, all the kids' toys, all my computers, all my clothes, makeup, bags, purses, couches, of whatever I had left. Because remember, all his stuff was out the house, all on the street. There was an eviction. And the agreement was he was supposed to still take care of our bills. Well, I found out that he hadn't paid in 5 months. And I'm like, there's a miracle we were still there. And everything in my life was on the street. The neighbor sent a picture. I'm seeing people grabbing stuff in a picture. And I'm like, so I screamed like I was losing my soul. And everybody thinking I'm crying about my uncle dying at the funeral. I'm like, no, my life here. And my family came in, they was trying to grab me. I was like, devastated. And then I'm not like down the street to go save anything. So I'm calling him. Oh my God, all the kids stuff. I don't even have a home to go back to. All my jewelry, everything that I've worked for, all the money I just had renovated. I was what in the world? So I'm calling, I'm talking to the landlord. I'm saying, how could you do this? Like, you didn't even call me. What do you mean call? I've sent you letters. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? I didn't get any letters. Your husband didn't tell? No. What? So I lost everything. All I had was the vehicle that I was in and whatever clothes me and my kids had. I was calling friends and family, please go and try to get my stuff. And nobody seemed to be available. Are you kidding me? Well, okay, I'll try. My god sister was the one who was able to kind of gather up the most of whatever was left. And so my brother would not let me get on that road. He would not let me leave. He was like, nope, you're going to either die getting there or you're going to kill somebody and we're going to have to come get you out of jail. Because it was very traumatic. And the pain of loss was just like, I guess, God, if you don't want me to walk away, you gonna take it. And I didn't hear the Lord tell me to leave, because I was too loyal. I'm just believing God can do miracles.
You didn't hear him tell you to leave.
I didn't hear him tell you to leave. I don't think that I could have. You know what? I don't believe that I would have been able to handle hearing the Lord say, leave or no. So he didn't give it to me like that, because I probably would have went into suicide, because it was something that I wanted so bad. And I was like, why is this not happening for me? And I know the Lord know me more than I know me. And it was just the thing that you want so bad. It ain't that. And then I was having people tell me, God is going to do this. It's going to restore your marriage. And I had people say, you dumb, blind, crazy, and stupid, leave. And I was playing tug of war, because I was like, I'm looking at it in a perception of how would God want me to move in this?
Well, Tiffini, I believe that this is just the beginning of many, many more blessings. And so I'd like for you to tell our audience how they can find you on social media.
Okay. So you can find me on social media. I'm on Instagram. You can put in Tiffini Sheree. I'm also on TikTok. You can go to my website, which is tsextensions.com. It's one of my businesses that I have now, which I'm so blessed to even have. You can definitely contact me. I'm also a realtor at Keller Williams. So if you're looking for a house or you need to sell your house, I will be more than happy to help you with that.
So thank you so much for sharing your story. And I'm excited about what the future has in store because I see
Awesome.
a bright light.
Woo! I'm excited too.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.